My mother held up the envelope like she was handing out an award. My sister got 2 weeks in Santorini. First-class flights. A private villa. A toast from everyone. Proud of her beautiful life. Then my mother turned to me. Perfect smile. 30 relatives watching. She pressed a folded lottery ticket into my palm. From a gas station. $2. For you, Elise, she said. Something realistic. I didn't even open it before the whole table laughed. My brother-in-law, Grant, leaned back. Raised his wineglass. Careful. She might win $10 and retire from playing with dirt. More laughter. My sister Natalie covered her mouth, pretending to be embarrassed for him. But her eyes sparkled. My father let out a low chuckle, the kind that said he thought the joke wasn't clever enough, not that it was cruel. I looked down at the ticket. 1 line of numbers. $2. Bought at the gas station 3 miles from my parents' house. Probably while my mother was picking up batteries and cranberry sauce. That's what she thought fit me. A joke small enough to fit in an envelope. Thank you, I said. 32 years in that family had taught me one thing, how to survive public humiliation without changing my face. This might be exactly what I need. No one understood that sentence. Not then. 2 months later, that ticket was worth $86 million. My parents' credit was destroyed. My sister was filing for divorce on a cruise ship. And my grandmother was sleeping in the home my family had tried to steal from her. But on that Thanksgiving night, in my parents' dining room in suburban St. Louis, I was still just Elise Mercer. 32 years old. Landscape designer. Unmarried. Childless. Useful whenever someone needed flowers arranged. Chairs moved. Dishes washed. Or discomfort absorbed. Quietly. The Mercer family did Thanksgiving like a board meeting with gravy. My mother, Claudia, prepared for it for weeks, not because she loved hosting, but because she loved being seen hosting. The good china came out. The silver was polished. The cousins were assigned seating according to how impressive their lives currently looked. My older sister Natalie always sat near the center, where everyone could admire her. Natalie was 35, blonde, polished, and trained from birth to receive applause as if applause were oxygen. She had married Grant Hale, a man my parents described as a wealth strategist, because private lender with expensive shoes sounded less respectable. They had 2 children, matching holiday outfits, and a house with white columns that looked like it had been purchased to prove a point. I arrived at 5 sharp with a tray of roasted carrots from the community garden I managed and a bundle of winterberry branches from my own yard. My mother opened the door, glanced at the branches, and sighed. Elise, sweetheart, you know I already hired a florist. They're just for the sideboard. Of course they are. She took them with 2 fingers, like they might shed dirt on her manicure. Then she looked over my shoulder and lit up. Natalie. My sister swept up the walkway in a cream coat, Grant behind her carrying nothing. My mother stepped around me so fast the door nearly hit my hip. Look at you. That coat is stunning. Howard, come see your daughter. My father came from the living room for Natalie. He had not come for me. I set the carrots in the kitchen, where my Aunt Teresa was already peeling potatoes with the tight expression of someone who knew too much and had spent years choosing silence. She kissed my cheek. You look tired, she whispered. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Her smile was sad. You know what I mean. I did. I always looked tired in that house. It was not only the work that exhausted me. It was the constant measuring. In my parents' home, I measured my tone before I spoke, my expression before I reacted, the amount of space my body took in a room. If Natalie arrived late, everyone saved her a chair and called her busy. If I arrived on time, my mother handed me a serving spoon before I removed my coat. If Natalie forgot a birthday, she was overwhelmed. If I forgot to call after a doctor's appointment, I was distant. The rules were never written down because writing them down would have made them too ugly to defend. The worst part was how reasonable they made it sound. Natalie had children, so she needed help. Grant worked in finance, so his time mattered. My father was under pressure, so he needed quiet. My mother hosted, so she needed support. Grandma June was old, so she needed patience. I needed nothing, apparently. I was the one with the flexible schedule, the simple life, the sturdy personality. A sturdy person can be leaned on until she cracks, and everyone will still call her dependable while stepping over the pieces. That Thanksgiving, I had promised myself I would not fight. I would smile, eat, clean what needed cleaning, visit Grandma at Glenhaven the next morning, and go back to my own apartment before anyone could convince me that loneliness was my fault. Keep your head down. Leave with dignity. Do not give them the scene they are waiting to blame on you. Within 20 minutes, I was filling water glasses while Grant explained a property deal to my uncles. The men leaned toward him as if wisdom spilled from his mouth. He spoke in phrases designed to sound rich, capital movement, distressed opportunity, short-term leverage, asset protection. I had met enough developers through my work to know the difference between confident and clean. Grant was confident. Clean was another question. My mother introduced me to a cousin's new husband near the dining room. This is Elise, our younger one. She does gardening. Landscape architecture, I said. Mostly public and commercial green spaces. Plants, my mother said, smiling. She's always loved plants. The cousin's husband nodded politely and turned back toward Grant. I carried the empty water pitcher to the kitchen and heard voices through the half-open pantry door. My mother, my father, Natalie. The island itinerary is perfect, my mother said. 10 days in Greece, then 3 in Rome before you fly home. The children will love it. You really shouldn't have, Natalie said, in the voice she used when she absolutely believed people should have. My father laughed. You two deserve it. Grant's new venture is big for the whole family. What about Elise? Natalie asked. Not kindly. More like someone noticing an extra chair in a photograph. There was a pause. My mother said, Elise wouldn't enjoy a trip like that. She has work, my father added. And someone needs to keep an eye on your grandmother's place while we're gone. Grandma isn't even there, Natalie said. She's at Glenhaven. For now, my mother said. My hand tightened around the pitcher. Glenhaven was the rehabilitation center where my grandmother June had been staying since a bad fall in August. She hated it there. Every time I visited, she asked when she could go home to the little brick house with the blue shutters where she had lived for 54 years. For now. I stepped into the kitchen. All 3 faces turned. My mother's smile snapped into place. Elise, were you listening? I was refilling water. What did you mean? Someone needs to watch Grandma's house while you're in Greece? My father picked up his coffee and stared into it like it might advise him. Natalie folded her arms. It's not a big deal. Mom and Dad planned a family vacation for us. A family vacation without me. Don't make it sound ugly, my mother said. You don't like travel. I love travel. You get overwhelmed. No, Mom. I get excluded. The room went still. Natalie looked annoyed, not guilty. My mother looked wounded, which was usually the step before anger. This is exactly why we didn't discuss it earlier, she said. You turn everything into an attack. Before I could answer, a walker scraped against the hallway floor. Grandma June stood near the kitchen entrance in a burgundy cardigan, small and pale but upright. Her white hair was pinned neatly. Her eyes, clouded by age but still sharp, moved from my mother to me. It is ugly, she said. My mother hurried toward her. Mom, you shouldn't be up. I am old, Claudia. Not absent. My father muttered, let's not do this before dinner. Grandma June ignored him. She reached me slowly and squeezed my wrist with surprising strength. Call Malcolm Reed on Monday. Who? Malcolm Reed. My attorney. Her fingers tightened. Promise me. My mother laughed too loudly. Mother, you're confused. Come sit down. Grandma did not look confused. She looked afraid. Promise, she whispered. I promise. My mother guided her away, saying something about medication and rest. Grandma June looked back once, her gaze flicking toward the worn leather purse she had left on the chair by the front window. The purse no one was allowed to touch. Dinner began with my father tapping his knife against a glass. He had sold insurance for 38 years and still spoke like he was closing a deal. Before we eat, Claudia and I want to say how grateful we are for family. In a world that keeps changing, family is what lasts. 30 people nodded. I stood near the sideboard because my mother had asked me to check whether the rolls needed warming. This year, Dad continued, we wanted to recognize our daughters. My stomach tightened. Natalie was called first. She stood with a practiced little laugh. My mother handed her a thick ivory envelope tied with gold ribbon. For you, Grant, and the children, Mom said. A Mediterranean holiday. First class all the way. Natalie gasped. Grant whistled. My Aunt Linda said, oh, Claudia, how generous. The room erupted into applause. My sister cried delicately into my mother's shoulder while Grant hugged my father with one arm and checked the itinerary with the other. Then my mother's eyes found me. Elise, come here. I walked forward through the fading applause. She handed me a plain white envelope, already bent at one corner. Inside was a lottery ticket. For you, she said. Maybe luck will give you a little boost. Grant made his joke. The table laughed. Someone said, don't spend it all in one place. Natalie giggled. My father looked away, but he was smiling. I felt heat climb my neck. Not shame. Something cleaner than shame. Anger with a spine. Thank you, I said again. I'll remember this. From the hallway came Grandma June's voice. Claudia. Howard. Shame on you. The laughter died. She stood without her walker, one hand braced on the wall. You embarrass yourselves when you embarrass her. My mother's face hardened. Mom, you need to lie down. No. You need to stop. For a second, I thought the room might change. I thought 30 witnesses might recognize cruelty when an old woman named it. Then my father crossed to Grandma, put one firm hand under her elbow, and said, Mother-in-law, you're overtired. My mother took the other side. Together they guided her away. The room exhaled. Forks lifted. Conversations resumed. The family corrected itself around the discomfort and kept eating. Aunt Teresa watched me from across the table. Her face was pale. Near midnight, after the cousins had left and Natalie and Grant were in the living room discussing resort excursions, I cleaned the dining room alone. It was always like that. My mother performed hospitality. I did the physical work of it. I carried a stack of plates past my father's study and saw papers spread across his desk. Red letters. Past due. Final notice. My father was careless only when he thought no one important was watching. I set down the plates. The top paper was a collection letter. Beneath it was a loan agreement between Howard Mercer and Grant Hale. Amount, $210,000. Interest, 29%. Secured by real property. My hands went cold. The property description was Grandma June's house. There was a signature page. June Whitcomb, signed in shaky blue ink. The date was September 3rd, the week after her fall, when she had been in the hospital on pain medication strong enough to make her forget my name twice in one visit. I photographed every page. Loan terms. Collateral schedule. A deed of trust. Grant's signature, bold and clean. My father's signature, cramped and desperate. Grandma's signature, frail and wrong. The picture rearranged itself in my mind. The trip. The exclusion. Grandma's fear. My family's need to keep me small and useful. I was not merely the less loved daughter. I was the one likely to notice a crooked document and ask why an old woman had signed away her home while medicated. The lottery ticket sat in my coat pocket, still folded. $2, given as a joke. On Monday, I called Malcolm Reed. His office was downtown in a narrow building with brass elevator doors and old marble floors. He was in his 60s, black, silver-bearded, with a careful voice and eyes that missed nothing. When I said my name, he did not ask why I was there. Your grandmother hoped you would come, he said. She told me to call you. She wouldn't say why. Because she was afraid someone might hear. He opened a folder. Miss Mercer, 10 years ago your grandmother created a trust in your name. I stared at him. A trust? $700,000. Originally funded from the sale of farmland she inherited from her brother. She wanted it protected from your parents. The room seemed to tilt. Why didn't she tell me? She wanted you to build your own life first. She said you would, if no one in your family convinced you that you were lucky to receive scraps. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. Malcolm slid another document forward. There is more. Your grandmother's house was never supposed to be used as collateral. Her estate plan leaves the property to you, with life tenancy protections for herself. The documents your father and brother-in-law filed conflict with earlier instructions. I saw the loan papers. His eyes sharpened. How? Dad left them out. I photographed them. He listened without interrupting while I described the date, the hospital stay, the pain medication, the signature. That gives us a starting point, he said. Potential undue influence. Possible fraud. We will need medical records, witnesses, and timing. Can we stop Grant from taking the house? With resources, yes. I almost laughed. Resources. Until that morning, I had thought of myself as comfortable but not wealthy. A good job. A modest apartment. A savings account built carefully. Then Malcolm had placed $700,000 of hidden trust money in front of me like a key. He showed me letters Grandma had written but never mailed. Some were addressed to me. Some were notes to herself, dates and observations in her looping handwriting. Elise came by after work and fixed the back steps. Claudia said Natalie needed the old pearl earrings more because she has events. Howard asked about refinancing again. Elise noticed the papers on the hall table and asked why I looked frightened. Reading them felt like opening windows in a locked house. My grandmother had seen more than I knew. She had seen my mother take credit for meals I cooked, my father praise Grant for ideas I had given him, Natalie accept gifts without asking what I received. She had written one line twice, underlined the second time. Elise has been trained to expect nothing. That does not mean she deserves nothing. I had to put the papers down. Malcolm gave me a minute without pretending not to notice. Then he said, your grandmother asked me several times whether an adult child can be protected from her own parents. I told her protection is easier when the adult child is ready to believe she deserves it. She said that about me? She said you were practical, loyal, and slow to anger. She was proud of the first two and worried about the third. That almost made me smile. Grandma has opinions. Strong ones. She also anticipated your mother might try to frame any estate challenge as greed. That is why the trust documents are unusually clear. She wanted the record to show that this was her decision, made while fully competent, long before the loan. And I still had not checked the lottery ticket. I went home that night and placed the ticket on my kitchen table. For 3 days, I had avoided it because checking felt like participating in my family's joke. But the numbers from the weekend drawing were online. I opened the state lottery website, smoothing the ticket with my thumb. First number. Match. Second. Match. Third. Match. I stopped breathing. Fourth. Fifth. Power number. All of them. I refreshed the page. I checked again. I went to the official app. I checked a third time. The jackpot was $86 million before taxes. I did not scream. I did not dance. I sat perfectly still in my small kitchen while my refrigerator hummed and my entire life split into before and after. Then I called Malcolm Reed again. I won the lottery, I said when he answered. There was a long pause. How much? 86 million. Another pause. Do not sign the back until we discuss claiming options. Do not tell anyone. Do not text anyone. Do not answer family questions about that ticket. My mother gave it to me as a joke. Then your mother has a sharper sense of irony than she knows. For the next week, I lived 2 lives. By day, I designed courtyard plantings for a hospital expansion and answered emails about irrigation schedules. By night, I sat in Malcolm's office signing documents to create an LLC that would claim the prize without my name splashed across every news page. I gave him the photos from my father's study. He obtained Grandma's medical records. Aunt Teresa agreed to meet me. We met at a quiet bakery on a rainy Tuesday. She arrived wearing a scarf pulled high around her neck, as if someone might recognize her through the window. I should have told you sooner, she said before sitting down. Told me what? Grant is not what they think. I waited. Teresa stirred her coffee until it nearly spilled. He lends money to people who can't get bank loans. Desperate people. Business owners, retirees, families behind on taxes. He dresses it up as private investment, but the rates are obscene. Your father went to him because the agency was already failing. Dad's agency? She nodded. Howard hid it for years. Bad investments, tax liens, a lawsuit from a former partner. Grant didn't rescue him. Grant trapped him. And Grandma's house? Her eyes filled. I heard Claudia talking about it after your grandmother's fall. She said June would never agree if she understood, so they needed to get it done while she was still manageable. Those were her words. My stomach turned. Teresa reached into her purse and took out her phone. There is something else. The screenshots were from Grant's messages with a woman named Kelsey, his assistant. Hotel confirmations. Photos. Text so intimate I looked away after the first few lines. One message made the air leave my lungs. Once the Mercer house clears, I file. Natalie will cry, but she'll survive. She was always the easiest route in. Does Natalie know? I asked. No. My sister had laughed at me over a $2 ticket. She had spent years accepting the golden chair at the table. She had also married a man who saw her as a route to property and money. For the first time in years, my anger toward her became complicated. Will you tell Malcolm everything? I asked. Teresa nodded. I'm tired of being afraid of your mother. The next day, I visited Grandma June at Glenhaven. Her room smelled like antiseptic and lavender lotion. She sat by the window with a blanket over her knees, staring at a courtyard where 3 dying shrubs leaned away from the wind. Those boxwoods are planted too deep, she said when I walked in. That is the first thing you've said to me, and you're right. She smiled, but her eyes searched my face. You called Malcolm. I did. Good. I sat beside her and told her what I knew. The loan. The deed. The trust. Teresa's testimony. I did not tell her everything about Grant's affair yet, she did not need that weight. Grandma closed her eyes. I remember Claudia bringing papers. I remember Howard saying it was for insurance. I remember being so tired. I thought if I signed, they would let me sleep. We're going to fix it. Can it be fixed? Yes. You sound certain. I took her hand. I also won the lottery. Her eyes opened. The ticket Mom gave me at Thanksgiving. It won. For 3 seconds, she stared. Then she laughed. Not loudly. Not easily. A dry, delighted sound that filled the little room with more life than the flowers on the windowsill. Claudia always did underestimate the wrong people. I laughed too, then cried before I could stop myself. Grandma touched my cheek. Do not let money make you cruel. I won't. Use it to become free. Use it to protect what matters. But do not become them. That was the promise I made beside her narrow rehab bed. Not revenge. Protection. Truth. Freedom. 2 weeks later, my parents hosted a farewell dinner before the Greece trip. I was invited because someone had to help with logistics. My mother asked me to arrange the flowers, confirm the car service, and make sure Grandma's nurse had emergency numbers while they were away. Natalie asked if I could water her orchids. Grant asked if I had bought any more lottery tickets. You never know, I said, setting a vase on the buffet. Luck can be strange. He smirked. Luck helps people who know what to do with it. Then I hope it finds someone competent. His eyes narrowed, but my mother called for a toast before he could answer. During dessert, Natalie held up photos of the villa on her phone. Blue water, white walls, a terrace with a pool that seemed to pour straight into the sea. My mother passed the phone around the table like a holy object. When it reached me, I looked at it for exactly 3 seconds and handed it back. Beautiful, I said. You'd be bored there, Natalie said. No soil to dig in. There are gardens in Greece. Grant snorted. Trust Elise to find landscaping on vacation. My father laughed. She has always been practical. Some people dream. Some people maintain. There it was again, the family philosophy disguised as a compliment. Natalie could dream because I maintained. Grant could gamble because I stabilized. My parents could perform generosity because I cleaned up afterward. I looked down the table at Grandma's empty chair. She had been kept at Glenhaven that night because my mother said the farewell dinner would tire her. In truth, I suspected Grandma's disapproval had become inconvenient. I placed the dessert plates in front of my relatives and thought about the documents in Malcolm's office. For the first time, being underestimated felt less like a wound and more like cover. Let them think I was harmless. Let them board the plane believing the joke had landed and the quiet daughter had swallowed it. Silence can be surrender, but it can also be strategy. To family, she said, lifting champagne. To prosperity. To a beautiful trip. I raised my water glass. In 12 days, they would be in the Aegean Sea. In 12 days, Malcolm would file the first challenge. In 12 days, the family that had laughed at me would be trying to call from another continent. The morning they left, I did not go to the airport. My mother texted, "You could have at least said goodbye." I replied, "Have a safe flight." Then I drove to Malcolm's office. By noon, the lottery claim was in motion through the LLC. By 3, Malcolm had filed notice challenging the collateral documents on Grandma's house and sent preservation letters to Grant's office, my parents, and the lender he had used. By 5, a local news alert reported that the anonymous winner of the $86 million jackpot had purchased the ticket at the Quickmart on Laclede Road. The same Quickmart where my mother bought my Thanksgiving joke. I did not need to say a word. Aunt Teresa did it accidentally, or maybe not accidentally at all, in the family group chat. Wasn't Elise's lottery ticket from that station? My phone lit up within minutes. Mom, Elise, honey, do you still have that little ticket? Dad, call me when you can. Important. Natalie, wait, did you actually check it? Grant, need to talk. Serious financial issue. I set the phone face down and made tea. By midnight, I had 68 missed calls. The voicemails were a study in human greed learning to wear affection badly. My mother began soft. Sweetheart, we're just curious. Call your mother. By message 9, she was angry. Ignoring your family is childish. My father used business language. Elise, there are tax considerations here. We should discuss this as a family. Natalie sounded breathless. Sis, if this is real, oh my God. I'm so happy for you. We should celebrate when we're back. Grant did not bother pretending. You need professional guidance. Do not make any decisions until we speak. The next evening, I sent one message to the group chat. Video call at 8 p.m. St. Louis time. Everyone needs to be present. They answered instantly. Of course. Absolutely. Can't wait. So proud. At 8, their faces filled my laptop screen from a lounge on the cruise ship. My parents sat close together beneath warm lights. Natalie stood behind them in a blue dress, sunburned and excited. Grant sat off to the side, jaw tight, eyes calculating. There she is, my mother said. Our lucky girl. Lucky. Not loved. Lucky. I did win, I said. The screen erupted. My mother cried. My father put both hands on his head. Natalie screamed so loudly someone off-screen looked over. Grant leaned forward. How much? He asked. 86 million. My mother sobbed harder. Oh, Elise. This is a blessing for all of us. No, I said. It is not. Silence began at the edges of the call. Before anyone talks about money, I continued, we need to talk about Grandma June's house. My father's face went gray. Grant's expression flattened. I shared my screen. The loan agreement appeared first. This is a $210,000 loan from Grant to Dad at 29% interest, secured by Grandma's property. This is the deed of trust with Grandma's signature from September 3rd. That was the week she was hospitalized, medicated, and unable to understand legal documents. Where did you get that? My father demanded. From your desk. My mother gasped. You went through private papers? You used an elderly woman's house as collateral while she was incapacitated, and your concern is privacy? Natalie's face had drained of color. What is she talking about? Ask your husband. Grant stood. This is absurd. Elise has always been jealous of this family. Now she has money and wants to create a scandal. Then you won't mind the medical records. I clicked to the next document. Or Aunt Teresa's statement about Mom saying Grandma needed to sign while she was manageable. My mother whispered, Teresa wouldn't. She did. Natalie looked at Grant. Did you lend Dad money? Grant's mouth tightened. Business is complicated. Did you use Grandma's house? Your father came to me. That is not an answer. I clicked again. Kelsey's messages filled the screen. I had blacked out the most intimate parts, not to protect Grant, but because Natalie did not need to be publicly stripped of dignity the way I had been. These are messages between Grant and his assistant, I said. He planned to leave Natalie once Grandma's house cleared. Natalie made a small sound. Grant lunged toward the camera. Those are fake. Then sue me, I said. Malcolm Reed has the originals. My father put his head in his hands. My mother cried, but the tears looked angry now. Natalie turned away from the screen. Grant disappeared from view, shouting at someone I could not see. Here is what happens next, I said. The loan is being challenged. Grandma's house will be cleared and protected. I am paying for her care, and she is going home. None of you will have access to her property, her accounts, my trust, or my lottery winnings. Your trust, my mother said. Grandma created it for me 10 years ago because she knew you would try to take it. My mother's grief vanished. That old woman poisoned you against us. No. She told the truth before you could bury it. My father looked up. Elise, please. We're family. Family doesn't drug a signature out of a 90-year-old woman. We didn't drug her, he said weakly. No, Dad. You waited until the hospital did. Natalie came back into frame, mascara streaked. Elise, I didn't know. I believe you about Grant, I said. I don't believe you didn't know how they treated me. She flinched. You laughed at the ticket. Her mouth opened, then closed. I am done being the useful daughter, I said. I am done being invited only when there is work to do. I am done letting this family define generosity as what I can give and selfishness as what I refuse to tolerate. My mother pointed at the camera. You are humiliating us. No, I said. I'm returning the truth to its owners. Natalie started crying then, but not the pretty holiday tears I knew. These came hard and ugly, her hand over her mouth, her shoulders bent forward as if something inside her had finally broken loose. Part of me wanted to comfort her automatically. That reflex was older than memory. Natalie cried, Elise softened the room. Natalie panicked, Elise explained. Natalie needed, Elise provided. My fingers even moved toward the screen before I stopped them. I know this hurts, I said. But I am not going to manage it for you. She looked up. Were you always this angry at me? The honest answer was yes. The fuller answer was worse. I was angry, I said. But mostly I was tired of hoping you would notice without losing anything first. My father whispered my name. My mother told him sharply to be quiet. Grant came back into frame, red-faced, saying he had lawyers too. Malcolm, who sat outside camera range at my kitchen table, slid a yellow notepad toward me. On it, he had written one sentence. Do not argue with unstable people on a recorded call. I nodded once. Any further communication about the loan, the property, or the trust goes through Malcolm Reed, I said. Any communication about my lottery claim goes through him too. If anyone harasses Grandma, Teresa, or me, the messages will be preserved. Grant laughed. You think money makes you powerful? No, I said. Documentation does. Then I ended the call. I had imagined feeling powerful. Instead, I sat in my quiet apartment while the screen went dark and felt exhausted enough to shake. My phone started buzzing immediately. Calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it off. 10 minutes later, someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Teresa holding a paper bag and looking like she had cried in the car. I opened the door. Malcolm told me where to find you, she said. I brought soup. I don't know why. It felt like something people bring after a disaster. Was it a disaster? She stepped inside and hugged me. No, honey. It was a fire alarm. They just hated hearing it. We sat at my little kitchen table and ate soup from mugs because I had never bought proper bowls. Teresa told me about the first time she suspected something was wrong with Grant. It had been at my parents' anniversary party, when a man she did not know cornered him near the garage and begged for more time. Grant had smiled through the conversation, one hand on the man's shoulder, looking friendly to anyone watching. Teresa had been close enough to hear him say, "Then don't make me involve your wife." "I should have said something," she said. "Why didn't you?" She looked into her mug. "Because your mother spent our whole childhood teaching everyone that peace meant not crossing her. I am 61 years old, and I still hear her voice in my head when I think about telling the truth. That was the first time I understood that my family had not only trained me, it had trained everyone around me to cooperate with the story. Some did it because they benefited. Some did it because they were afraid. Some did it because silence had become a habit so old it felt like character." "You spoke now," I said. "Late. But not too late." She wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Your grandmother said that about you once. She said, Elise thinks late love doesn't count, but sometimes late courage still does." I sat with that for a long time after Teresa left. The first text I read the next morning was from Natalie. "I didn't know about Grant and Kelsey. I didn't know about Grandma's house. I did know they treated you like less. I let myself benefit from it. I am sorry. I don't expect you to answer." I did not answer. Not that day. But I did not delete it. The collapse happened faster than anyone expected. Kelsey, furious that Grant had tried to call her a liar, posted her own proof online. Hotel receipts, photos, voice messages, dates that overlapped with family birthdays and school events. Then 2 former clients came forward about his lending practices. By the time the ship returned, Grant had Attorney General investigators asking questions and Natalie had divorce papers waiting. My father's insurance agency filed for bankruptcy within a month. The debts had been older and deeper than I knew. Grant had not caused all of them, he had simply seen weakness and monetized it. My parents sold their house before the bank could force the issue and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the interstate. My mother called 3 weeks after the video call. "You ruined us," she said before hello. "No. I exposed what was already ruined. Your father lost everything. Dad borrowed money he couldn't repay and used Grandma's home to do it. We needed help. You had a daughter, you could have asked for help. Instead you laughed at her in front of 30 people. Because you always act superior." I almost smiled. "Mom, you called my career gardening for 15 years. This is not about plants. No. It's about respect. You don't get my money because your cruelty accidentally bought the winning ticket." Her breathing went sharp. "After all I did for you. Name it." The line went quiet. "Name one thing you did for me that didn't come with a reminder of what I owed you." "You are cold," she whispered. "I don't know when my daughter became so cold. I learned to stop standing in the weather." She hung up. Grandma June came home in April. I had spent weeks preparing the house: ramp at the front door, widened bathroom doorway, safer flooring, a bedroom downstairs, full-time care arranged but not hovering. The garden was a wreck. Weeds, dead hydrangeas, one stubborn patch of daffodils pushing through neglect like little yellow flags. When the transport van pulled into the driveway, Grandma looked out the window and began to cry before the door opened. "Home," she said. "Home," I agreed. I wheeled her into the sunroom where she had taught me to start seeds in egg cartons. The old wicker chair was still there, repaired and newly cushioned. Her blue teapot sat on the side table. The house smelled faintly of lemon oil and fresh paint. "You spent too much," she said. "I won $86 million. Let me have grab bars." She laughed and touched the windowsill. "Your mother called." I figured. "She said you tore the family apart." "What did you say?" Grandma looked at the garden. "I said a rotten fence falls when the wind finally reaches it." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. In the weeks after she came home, the garden became our way of speaking when the rest was too heavy. I pulled weeds while she sat on the porch wrapped in a quilt, giving instructions like a general. The peonies needed dividing. The roses had black spot. The lilac by the fence had been pruned badly by my father, which she considered a personal betrayal nearly equal to the loan documents. "Your grandfather planted that lilac the year your mother was born," she told me one afternoon. "Should we replace it?" "Absolutely not. We cut out the deadwood and see what's still alive." I knew she was talking about more than the shrub. I also knew she was wise enough not to say so directly. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles, curiosity, and gossip disguised as concern. Grandma accepted the casseroles and ignored the gossip. When Mrs. Bell from 2 houses down asked whether it was true that I had won the lottery and taken over everything, Grandma smiled sweetly and said, "No, Elise gave back what was stolen. There is a difference." By evening, half the block knew the corrected version. She took my hand. "You did not leave the family, Elise. You showed up for the person they were willing to sacrifice." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The afternoon sun moved across the floor. In that silence, I understood something that no jackpot could have taught me. Money can buy safety. It can buy lawyers, nurses, ramps, privacy, and time. It cannot buy the certainty that you did the right thing. That has to be earned. 3 months later, a letter arrived from Natalie. Not a text. Not a dramatic voicemail. A letter written in her careful handwriting. She apologized without asking for money. She admitted she had enjoyed being favored because it made her feel secure. She wrote that Grant's betrayal forced her to look at how easily she had ignored mine. She said she had started therapy. She said she did not expect forgiveness, but she wanted me to know she finally saw me clearly. I read it twice and put it in my desk drawer. A month later, I met her for coffee. It was awkward. She looked thinner, less polished, and more real than I had ever seen her. For the first 10 minutes, we talked about weather like strangers at a bus stop. Then she said, "I laughed that night because if I didn't, Mom would have looked at me like I had betrayed her." You still laughed. I know. That matters. I know. There was no miracle reconciliation. No tearful embrace that fixed 30 years. But there was something new between us, a sentence that did not excuse itself. That was enough for one coffee. My parents and I settled into distance. My father texted on my birthday. "Hope you're well. Love, Dad." I replied, "Thank you. Hope you're well too." He never asked for money directly. My mother did, indirectly, several times. She mentioned rent increases, car repairs, the unfairness of starting over at her age. I listened once. Then I said, "I will not discuss money unless we first discuss what you did to Grandma." She changed the subject. She always changed the subject. I did not rescue them from the consequences of choices they still refused to name. 1 year after that Thanksgiving, my life looked nothing like the life my family had mocked. I still worked because I loved the work. I expanded my landscape design studio and hired 2 women straight out of school who reminded me of myself before I learned to apologize for having ambition. We took on public gardens, hospital courtyards, school playgrounds, quiet spaces where people could breathe. Most of the lottery money stayed invested. I bought a modest house 10 minutes from Grandma June, with enough land for test gardens and a muddy rescue dog named Basil who believed every planting bed existed for his personal excavation projects. I also created the June Whitcomb Foundation for girls and women pursuing creative, practical, often underestimated work, landscape design, ceramics, textile restoration, music therapy, botanical science, community art. The first scholarship recipient wrote in her application that her father called her dream a hobby with invoices. I funded her full tuition. When I told Grandma, she smiled from her sunroom chair. Good. Give them invoices. The foundation gave me a kind of joy I did not know money could support. Not the sharp thrill of buying something expensive, but the deep satisfaction of removing a locked gate from someone else's path. I read applications late at night with Basil snoring under my desk. A girl from Kansas wanted to restore prairie land on abandoned lots. A single mother in Ohio wanted certification in therapeutic garden design after her son recovered from cancer. A violinist from rural Arkansas wrote that music was the only place she felt, not too much. I understood that phrase so well I had to walk away from my desk. I did not fund everyone. That was the hardest part. Even 86 million has structure when you are serious about doing good instead of performing it. Malcolm helped build a board. Teresa joined it. Natalie, months later, offered to help review applications anonymously because she had experience with school fundraising. I said yes after thinking about it for a week. Trust did not return all at once, but I could allow a small responsibility and watch what she did with it. She took the work seriously. Her notes were careful. She argued for applicants whose families dismissed them, and the first time she said, "This one sounds like you," she stopped, looked stricken, and whispered, "I'm sorry." I believed that apology more than the letter, because it arrived in the middle of changed behavior. Grant eventually pled to financial charges related to illegal lending practices. I did not attend the hearing. Natalie did. She told me later he looked smaller without the suit and the audience. Kelsey moved away. My father's former agency became a dental office. My mother stopped attending her book club after, according to Teresa, the women became uncomfortable with the situation, which was polite Midwestern code for everyone knew. People asked whether the money changed me. It did, but not in the way they meant. I did not become flashier. I did not become cruel. I did not buy revenge in the form of cars or mansions or public scandals. The money gave me the space to stop negotiating with people who benefited from my fear. It gave me the ability to protect my grandmother without asking permission from the people who endangered her. It gave me privacy when everyone wanted access. But the true change had happened earlier. It happened at that Thanksgiving table when my mother gave me a $2 ticket and the room laughed. Something in me finally stopped begging the room to become kind. That was the real jackpot. On the next Thanksgiving, Grandma June sat at the head of her own table. We kept it small. Teresa, Natalie and her kids, my neighbor Camille, Malcolm Reed and his wife, and me. Natalie brought sweet potatoes and asked where to put them instead of assuming someone would clear space for her. Grandma noticed and winked at me. Before dessert, Grandma raised her glass of sparkling cider. To Elise, she said, who knew the value of a home, a promise, and herself. I tried to object. She glared me into silence. Everyone laughed, but this time the laughter did not cut. It warmed. I looked around that table and thought about my parents in their apartment, my mother probably telling herself I had abandoned them, my father probably staring at a football game he was not watching. I felt sadness, but not guilt. Sadness honors what should have been. Guilt tries to drag you back into what harmed you. I had learned the difference. I still have the lottery ticket. Not the original, of course. The original is locked away with legal documents and tax records. I keep a framed copy in my office, behind the door where clients rarely notice it. Sometimes, when a young designer sits across from me and explains that her family thinks her work is silly, I glance at that frame and remember my mother's smile. Something realistic, she had said. She was right, in a way she never intended. Freedom is realistic. Boundaries are realistic. Legal documents are realistic. Bank records, medical records, signatures, care plans, scholarships, locks changed, phone calls unanswered, a grandmother sleeping safely in her own bed. All of that is realistic. So is walking away from a table where people only pass you scraps. If you have ever been the one your family underestimated, the one asked to serve while others were celebrated, the one given a joke and expected to call it love, I hope you hear this clearly. You do not need a winning ticket to prove your worth. You do not need a public downfall, a lawyer's folder, or a dramatic video call. Those things made my story louder, but they did not create my value. My value existed before the numbers matched. So does yours. The people who benefit from your smallness will often call your freedom selfish. They will say you changed when you stop accepting the old exchange rate, your labor for their approval, your silence for their comfort, your forgiveness for their convenience. Let them say it. A person who only recognizes your kindness when it is available for use was never recognizing you at all. I still believe in family. That surprises people. I believe in showing up, in shared meals, in caring for children and elders, in inconvenient loyalty, in forgiveness when forgiveness is met by accountability. I believe in all of it more now than I did before. What I no longer believe is that family titles are blank checks. Mother, father, sister, husband, child, those words are beginnings. They are not proof of love by themselves. Love has receipts too. It shows up in protection, honesty, repair, and the willingness to tell the truth even when the truth costs something. My mother gave me a lottery ticket because she thought it was worthless. My father laughed because it was easier than defending me. My sister smiled because being favored had taught her not to look down. My brother-in-law underestimated me because men like him mistake quiet for weak. Every one of them was wrong. I did not become valuable when I became rich. I became free when I stopped agreeing that they were allowed to decide my price.